welcome to the BattleVault, a no dice, no glory podcast dedicated to the playing of Battlefront's tactical games, including Flames of War, World War III Team Yankee, Great War, Fate of the Nation, and Damn. I'm Ed, and I'm joined by my buddy Tom. So, Tom, what are we doing?
Hey, thank you, Ed. In today's episode, we have two parts. In part one, we'd like to thank our listeners so far for the feedback that they've given. Then we'll move on to talking about the past U.S. tournament results for the last month or so. Then we're going to talk about a tournament that Ed and I went to, Indy Storm, a new tournament, a new convention in Indianapolis, Indiana. And from that, we'll roll into a discussion of, can the 21st Panzer win? In part two, we have an interview with a Las Vegas Open West Coast Nationals winner, Vincent Arroyo. Then we'll move into rules Ed forgot. And finally, we'll close out with upcoming U.S. events. Well, we'd like to start off with this podcast by thanking the field out there for the feedback we've been given.
Yeah, I was surprised. We just went to the Indy Storm thing, and as soon as we got in the building, we got swamped by all these kudos for doing this thing. And I was surprised at the number of people that were saying this.
But by swamp, Ed means about half a dozen.
Maybe 6 people. But it was a whole bunch more than I even thought.
Yeah, we were surprised by that because we hadn't really announced it or posted on Facebook yet. It just kind of was out there, so that was good. And then we also got some feedback on the forum, the No Dice, No Glory forum, which you have not been to. Certainly a great place to check out to get information about the games we talk about. But some of the things that people were looking particularly from us, and we do appreciate the compliments. The extra motivation is always good, so thank you for giving that. But what we really like is when you tell us where we messed up or where we need to fix things. And we got some feedback on Lars versus MLS and missing that point, so that was good. Well, we also got some feedback about requests for Soviets.
Oh yeah, I have no problem with that. I play Soviets a lot, and Tom plays a lot of Team Yankee Soviets, and I played Flames of War Soviets.
And I play World War II Soviets as well, but not as much as you, because you like Soviets so much, I tend not to use mine.
Right. Yeah.
But we're both very conversant in Soviet, all periods of World War II and Team Yankee. But it might be a while before we get around to that, because bag rations this summer, and we're very focused on the new D-Day books.
D-Day and 21st, yeah.
So that's kind of where we're being at the moment. But we'll get to Soviets, have no doubts. It's coming. We're big fans, too. We also had more requests for, or at least a lot of positive response, particularly on rules Ed forgot.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's no problem there.
yeah.
That's a common occurrence around here.
Yeah, but spoiler alert on this episode, it's actually going to be rules Tom forgot.
Which is not usual.
Not usual, but it does happen. I did get educated at my last tournament, so we'll share that experience with you later. And then finally, one of our listeners said he was really looking forward to our thoughts and analysis. Well, you're certainly going to get a lot of our thoughts. How frequently they rise to the level of analysis, you'll have to leave that up to you to determine. I think we're going to have to bring in outside help.
Either that or another slug of beer there.
Yeah. But we do plan to bring in outside speakers. In fact, we've already mentioned we'll have a guest speaker, a guest host later on in this podcast. So anyways, please... keep giving us the feedback, however you want to give it to us on Facebook, on email, phone calls, on posting on the forums, particularly the No Dice, No Glory forums. Great place to go if you hadn't been there yet. So, Ed, we've had a pretty good amount of Flames of War of tournaments played lately in the U.S., so why don't you give us a rundown of what's happened in the last month or so?
Okay, when I looked on the sites, I came up with a couple things. Looks like 5 of these we can talk about. The first one I want to mention here is the West Coast Nationals that was at Las Vegas on the 25th of January. There were 46 players there. Good showing. It was a 100-point late war tournament, and Vincent Arroyo, I hope I'm saying that right.
You are.
Played German Fallschirmjägers, and I think he's the guy that's going to be calling in for the interview. Yes,
we'll be talking to him later.
All right, great. Second place on that was James Best Jr. playing Soviets, and then Jacob Mayer playing Americans.
Yep, and I think James Best was playing Churchills, as I understand it, Soviet Churchills, and I'm not quite sure what Jacob Mayer was playing for the U.S. I'd love to know.
Okay. All right, the next one I found was the Southeast Michigan. That's all I've got here. Southeast Michigan tournament on the 25th of January. There were 8 people at this tournament. It was a 100-point mid-war. The winners on that were Roger Moderman, and he played Italian. And second place was David Zvonik. Okay, sorry if I'm messing your name up. But also playing Italians. And the third place was Marshall Lambie, and playing German. So I'm seeing a trend here.
Axis sweep, huh?
Yeah, it's an Axis sweep.
But it was a small event. It was only 8 players, and I think most of them actually played Axis. I don't think there was a whole lot of
That's
allies.
one way to stack the deck on that.
We could help them with that.
Okay. All right. Well, good job there. The next one here, I got the one in Pittsburgh here at Legions. It was a 100-point late war. It was on 1st of February. Dave Vieger. Number 1. He's our buddy.
Yeah.
He played German. He was in first place there, followed by Michael Schwilly?
I'm not sure. Don't know the man.
I'm going to kill your names there. All right, playing Americans. And then Rob North playing Americans as well. So those were the top 3 players. And that was a 14-person tournament. Good showing. All right. This next tournament, I didn't write down the number of people on this one.
They had 14. That was Dreamers Vault was 14.
Okay. All right. This was a 90-point mid-war at Dreamers.
Dreamers
February mid-war tournament.
Yeah, I think their store is called Dreamers Vault.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, John Cederberg playing Germans. There we go. We got the string going. We got Chris Panzer Grau playing Soviets, though, in second place. Yeah, and Jim Bodine playing Brits.
My guess is Jim Bodine was playing British infantry. I've played him before in Masters. And Chris, a.k.a. Panzer Grau, one of my best friends of all time. I know he was playing Soviets. It said on the but I know he was playing T-34s and Valentines, and
well, that's what I like to play too.
Was pretty excited about that list.
Yeah. All right, and the last one I'm going to mention here is the Indy Storm tournament that both Tom and I went to. That was an 88-point late war up in Indianapolis on 1st of February. Joe Lewis placed first. There was a 15-point tournament. One person
15-player tournament.
Excuse me, 15-player. And one person got sick or had to leave early. I can't remember the reason.
Yeah, we had someone had to depart for family reasons.
Okay. But Joe Lewis got first place there. He's playing some Fallschirmjäger Germans, followed by Chris Jackson playing Armored American Infantry.
Yeah,
and
we both
played him.
Played him.
He was my first game that he nailed me pretty good
both
there.
Of us.
Yeah. He's great. And Tom Burgess was third place. Who's that guy?
What, that guy?
That
tool?
Yeah, that tool is the one who killed me in my final round there.
And we'll talk more about the Indy Storm tournament from our perspectives later in the podcast.
Yeah.
So this past weekend, Ed and I had a chance to go up to Indianapolis to play in a new convention, Indy Storm. Storm! Yes, that's how they say it up there. And it was hosted by Able Company. They had 2 events going on Saturday. On what day was that? That was the
first.
Mm-hmm. Yes, February 1st. Yeah, Saturday we played 88-point late war, Flames of War, and Ed and I both were in that one. And then Sunday they ran a 120-point Team Yankee, which being Super Bowl Sunday was
I just couldn't make it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that was a bit much for us to stay for a 2-day event, but we did enjoy the first part. So Ed, what did you take there?
I took my 21st. Oh yeah. I was all psyched up for that, and I was ready to go. 88 points. You want me to tell you what I had in my force?
I know what you have, but our listeners may be interested.
I will tell them too.
All right.
I was playing the 21st Grenadier Force, and so I had my headquarters platoon, and I had all possible half tracks to come with it. So I maxed them out there, but I didn't give my my headquarters platoon the Panzerfaust.
Okay.
But I just did that. So I maxed it out there. I had my multi-mortars, my Reinhardt-Waffes.
Yep.
Multi-mortar section. My 21st Panzer S307, sort of like their mortars.
Yeah, the half tracks with the Pac 40s, which is your main anti-tank asset.
That was it, yes. And so I also had the Hotchkiss 75s, but a platoon of 3 because that's all it comes in. And then I had a couple of 10-4 AAs That was my main force.
Were they armored or unarmored this time?
I did bring the armored card with that.
Okay.
So, yes. And so I also had, for support, I had the 105 Schleppers, just 3 there, the OP Panzer III, and then finally I had the Hotchkiss 75.
So this was basically the same force that we play tested 2 weeks prior?
That is correct.
So you didn't make any changes?
I didn't make any changes.
Even after I rolled you 8-1, you made no changes?
I wasn't counting on playing you again.
Okay. All right.
However,
history has a way of repeating itself.
Yes, and it did.
We'll come back to that here in a few minutes. So for myself, I've been on a U.S. kick lately, painting a lot of violet brown and olive drab and so on. So I got to roll a U.S. tank company. First time I've ever done that in a Flames of War event. Mm-hmm. I played U.S. infantry plenty of times.
Yeah, you're working hard getting that thing finished.
Yeah, I got it done. So I had the M4 Sherman, the train Shermans, of course. A platoon of 4 Shermans with 76 millimeter guns, a platoon of Shermans with the 75 millimeter guns, with 4 vehicles, 4 M5 Stewarts. I had also 3 of the indispensable M4 81 millimeter mortars. And then for support, we had the Greyhounds, the Greyhound Reconnaissance Patrol with a couple of Jeeps, M7 Priest, which I think are a great unit.
Yep. A
veteran rifle platoon with additional bazooka. It was a full platoon. And finally, M10 tank destroyers. So I had a pretty good amount of AT-12 and a good number of tank hulls and a good fair balance of support.
Oh, yeah.
So how'd your games go? How about your first game there, Ed?
Well, you know how excited I was playing the 21st. I've been working on it for a long time. First game I played against Chris Jackson, who placed number 2 in the tournament, by the way, with a little help from me losing that first game.
Yeah.
But I did. My killers, who I thought would be my 75s, were not my killers. It was my mass of machine guns. I ended up finishing that game, a 3-6. We were playing the bridgehead scenario. He was defending, and charging into a bunch of paratroopers and armored. So he had armored.
Did he choose defend?
He chose defend, right?
Okay. All right. And then did Chris? Did he let you choose that for him, or did he just tell you that's what I'm doing?
No, he chose defend.
Did he tell you he chose defend before you made your decision? Is the question? You don't remember?
Yeah, when we figured out the battle at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, we did pick the.
So you did it simultaneous reveal?
Yes.
Okay, he did not do that with me. With me, he said, "I'm defending," and I'm like,
"Oh, okay, take it back." Yes, he did. I had my chip in my hand though. Oh, okay. Well, here's what I got.
I wasn't asking about you. I was asking about him.
Yeah, I couldn't. But when you said that, I remember that because I didn't want him to do that.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, that is correct.
So that's his thing. Mm-hmm. Chris goes out. He either just tells you, "Tell me what you want me to play," and that's what, or he'll just tell you, "I'm playing this. Pick what you want." Right. And so in this tournament, he went "I'm playing this. Pick what you want." Mm-hmm. And so he picked defend with you. Well, he picked defend with me later on in the tournament. Mm-hmm. And okay, so that's what I was asking.
Yeah, when you said that, it jarred that memory because you know how my memory works.
Yeah, because we have to jar Ed's memory.
Yes, okay.
Okay, very good. All right, so that's all cleared up. So and the game was a result?
It was a 3-6. What happened was I was shooting them to pieces with my machine guns, and I didn't lose hardly anything at all, but I just could not push through. To get to it, I did knock out 3 platoons, and they knocked them out with machine guns.
Did the game end with you more than 8 inches away from
and
objective?
that's why it ended on turn 6. I just couldn't push close enough, fast enough.
Fair enough. So in my first game, I played Dirty Dick Herchanik from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Playing Germans.
Yes, he was playing Germans, Fallschirmjägers, with 2 Fallschirmjäger platoons. I think they were full up, and he had the beach defenders, the additional grenadier platoon that was part of the formation of regular grenadiers, and they were maxed out with Panzerfaust and Panzer Schrecks. He also had 3 Pack 40s.
Oh, okay.
He had the unit of 3 Stummelwerfers, Stummel mortars, and his big reserve was 3 Tiger 1s. And he went first in our game, so he could not bombard and all that stuff, and only had limited rate of fire. I pretty much just masked. I don't want to go too much detail. I just kind of swung hard into his deployment zone. So he was on the defensive since the beginning of the game. He never had a chance to really push into my deployment zone. I was just coming at him too hard. But one thing I do want to specifically talk about from that game is that people often talk about how artillery bombardments will just instantly wipe out guns. And I'm telling you what, veteran guns do not die fast, at least not those ones with a 3+ save. Because when I went on my turn, I could bombard. I ranged in with my priest with time on target on those 3 Pack 40s, all 3 under the template. I ranged in with my half-track mortars, no time on target, but still ranged in first attempt. And I even ranged in with my 60mm mortar from my scouts for first attempt. All 3 templates were on top of these 3 Pack 40s for 4 turns. And I only ever killed one of them.
That sounds like my second game. Same kind of thing.
He had reroll saves and from repeats, and then earlier on time on target. I was hitting them, and he just kept saving, or then I'd fail the firepower, and they were still there. I'm just telling you, veteran guns with a 3+ save can hang around through bombardments for quite a while. Ultimately, I had to assault them, and he still had 2 guns up when I assaulted them. They were pinned, but I had to bring in a Sherman platoon to take them out finally. So interesting game. Dick did manage to knock out 2 platoons, so that ended up being a 7-2. I think he knocked out my Stuarts. I think his Tigers whacked them from long range, because I use smoke a lot to keep him from shooting at my main assets, my tank destroyers and my my tanks themselves. And really, the whole game centered around killing the Tigers with the 76mm guns. But what really won the game was that one plain Jane Sherman platoon that got around all the way to his rear and attacked his beach defenders from behind and pushed that objective. So that was a win on turn 6 with a 7-2.
So maneuver is what won that game.
So tell me about your second game there, Ed.
My second game was against Waylon Burt. He was playing a Fallschirmjäger infantry thing also. He had Panzer IVs in support. And he was playing the card that had the Fallschirmjägers with the trained. They were trained far.
Yeah. They gave him less. I forgot what the actual card's called.
Costs a little bit less, but
it gives
still
them
has good data on it.
So they don't dig in as well and don't do movement orders as well. Yeah. But they're still fearless and still hit on 4s, and so still good solid troops.
Well, we played that, and he picked the attack, and I got the defend on the counterattack game. So what that meant, I had the reserves and he did not, and so. In my reserves, I had the Schleppers, a platoon of my half-track platoon there, one of my 2 platoons there, and then I had something else too. I can't remember what it was.
Well,
but there was something else. The memory will come back shortly,
or not.
But it was exactly 40 points. So I'll figure it out in a minute. But anyway, so. There you go. It worked out pretty good. So, but what happened was on turn 1, you got that objective off to the side there. So he decided to run with one of his Fallschirmjäger platoons straight to the objective in on the far side there to secure that objective.
With all your half tracks running around.
Not yet. Yeah,
okay.
But that's what ended up, because I had one in reserve protecting the objective on the one side, and then I had the other one in reserve, so I really didn't have a lot out there, and so I couldn't. I only had a few things that could respond. And I had my headquarters platoon on the board with their half tracks, and I had my OP, and that's what I had to respond to these things. So they switched to the side there. I had some machine gun shots, and they did well. They shot them to pieces. And then I followed that up with the multi-mortars as well.
Okay.
And so I ranged in, got them.
Nice crossfires and bombardment zones all impacting in the kill zone.
But that being said, 3 survived and made it to the building next to the objective. And that became my issue, trying to get those guys out of there. And it took my reserves eventually to knock them out of there. And I eventually secured that. So it ended up being a win, an 8-1 win for me.
Okay.
And so, his Panzer IVs just didn't make it.
Yeah, well, that blows, but that's, you got to put your stuff in reserve. You got to have a, it's a strategy, tactic, if you will, that a lot of people do. They try to put a big single unit in reserves, but So when the reserves do arrive, they come in with all your firepower in one big sweep. So
I was fortunate to get my reserves on the second chance to bring it in, so that helped.
A little bit of luck in favor, but also a maneuver battle against infantry. You certainly had a pretty decent advantage with all those machine gun armed vehicles. Yep. So good. My second game was against Chris Jackson, who beat Ed in his first game.
Yes.
So decided to finish off the rest of the BattleVault duo in the second round. So no, Chris told me, as I said earlier, that he was going to defend. I just walked up to the table and said, "Hey," and he said, "I'm defending." Okay, well, you got infantry and you're defending. I'm tanks. I'd be attacking.
There you go.
I'm not doing that. A lot of people in today meta, they seem to our tank players will try to pick defend when playing against infantry player, so that tries to force infantry player out in the open. I think that's not what I want to do. I want to do the missions that this force was designed to do, which is
tanks attack.
Yeah, in fact, I went attack on all 3 rounds. I'm perfectly happy doing that. So, anyways, we had a nice, good, solid defensive battle. We ended up playing a rear guard, so he had all of his forces deployed. The phase time goes at time 9. Things were going pretty well. I laid a good smoke screen, got in pretty close, tried to negate his ambush site. There was one hill that was kind of a key hill overlooking the objective area that was, though it wasn't objective, it was clearly an important piece of terrain I had to seize in order to win this game. So I tried to do an assault with my Stuarts, and it should have worked, but I failed to break out the old 8-inch tape measure or the 8-inch ruler and make sure who else was not within 8 inches. And just so happened that he had an M8 Greyhound just at just about 7.9 inches away. So I sucked up a couple of 37 millimeter shots I was not expecting, which was enough. But one killed. One knocked out by a 37 or bailed, I can't remember. The other one knocked out or bailed by the Panzer.
So that stopped the assault right
So
there.
Stopped the assault. Yeah. But my intent was to get in there and then
force movement,
consolidate to the rest of the hill, which would deny the entire hill as an ambush site. And that did not work, because my assault got stopped cold. So and also lost a.
That was a pretty bold move to begin with.
And lost a couple Stuarts for no effect. Yeah. So he was then able to ambush on that perfect ambush position.
But
what
is that? He had M10s.
Yes, yes, correct. With 4 M10s, that was his big M10 unit. Yep. The other M10 unit was around the board. By the way, he was running armored infantry company,
M10
armored rifle company. Yeah, and he had a M10 formation and support, but only one of the platoons was full. The other platoon was half strength.
Right.
In the headquarters.
And the headquarters is just like a Greyhound.
So his big ambush unit was the 4 M10 unit, and I'm a little shaken on my side of the table, but the dice gods were with me, and he only achieved 1 kill out of that volley of 8 shots against trained tanks.
Well, that's a repeat, because the same thing happened in our game too.
Yeah. So you can't fault his dice for not being square, because those things, they rolled poorly for him on that one. And so I got away lucky. I was able to remount. My commander was right there. Everything got back up. And then those 4 M10s on the hill were just totally fired out by every single gun tube I had.
Kill those guys quick.
They were vaporized instantly. So they were done in one swack, having only killed a single tank. So I was lucky on that. So after that, the rest of it ended up being kind of trading back and forth. He was doing extremely well with his remaining platoon of just 2 tank destroyers. Those guys were hanging back to the rear, using some hedges, some blitz moves up, some shooting scoots back. He was moving those things like a champ, and they were starting to whittle me down. And he also had some 57mm anti-tank guns coming in from my right, which also started getting some long-range shots.
Oh, wow.
So he's starting to pick me off 1s and 2s of my trained tanks and get me down to platoons of 3 and 2. So it's getting a little nervous. But I eventually went out over that game. The thing, or at least that part of the game.
You won that game?
Oh no, I lost. Okay. But I spoiler alert. Yeah. But I did wipe out his tank destroyer formation eventually. It just took a while. But rear guard is one of those games where you have a certain number of turns, 9, to get the job done. So his tank destroyers really consumed a good amount of my attention. Also, to his benefit, I'm not a big fan of relying on aircraft, but his P-47s came in on turn 1 and went right for my priest, which my entire force was one big glob, so he wasn't coming near that because there's machine guns all over the place.
Right.
But my priests were off kind of by themselves, and they were out there hanging in the breeze, and he went for him like a shark sitting blood in the water.
Oh yeah, those are the guys that take
yeah.
out,
So one was killed, and one was bailed out. And that other one never bailed back in, and so that basically that priest battery fired one more time, stuck on the board, did a half battery.
So it still stayed around. It just
only for another turn or two. The other bailed vehicle would never remount, and eventually they ran.
Yeah.
So effectively, it took a while to actually materialize, but effectively the P-47s took out those priests on the first turn, which was huge because I wasn't while I was playing in the counter tank battle. I was not whittling down the platoon on the objective, which was my primary.
Which should have been happening.
Yeah, I should have been whittling those guys down, and then my mortars just kept missing the range in, trying to chase his 57 millimeter anti-tank guns. Yeah. So I really
diversion.
Yeah. So he was able to dance some things around the periphery of the main effort and distract me. So I still had a chance, and I could have gone in on turn 8, and I chose not to. That was a mistake. I chose to continue to try to machine gun. I had killed no bazookas from that platoon. He had all 4 bazookas operational.
Sad. With all your tanks, that's a bad thing.
I know, but so I thought I had to try to whittle down some bazookas, but he kept making saves, or I kept failing firepowers. I had killed no bazookas on turn 8, and I basically was all just gathered around trying to do that. I should have been assaulting on turn 8. Or was it that maybe that was turn 7, because turn 8 is the one where I have my last chance, and he wins at the beginning of turn 9. So anyways, my second to last chance I had to do it. I should have done it instead of shooting. But and then my last chance to actually take the objective, I went in with the assaults. I had 3 platoons assaulting, and I just could not push them off. I had 2 of the 3 assaults close, and this is going to be a thing that we're going to discuss about on rules Ed forgot, except for it's actually going to be rules Tom messed up. So we'll come back to that later on. So the long story short is I did push him off the objective. Almost. he had just a minimal toehold, maybe a quarter of an inch,
but just enough to stay around.
The way it looked, I can put some photos on the forums, and maybe I'll do an article on this tournament. But it was so close. But it ended up being a 6-3. I'd whacked plenty of platoons. I really had only lost my as far as my own platoons is my Stuarts. My Stuarts just kept dying every damn game. But he got those. So it was a fantastic game against a great player. It was a really good time, good experience, and I learned some very valuable lessons.
And so air saved the day. Knocking out those priests would have saved you. Would have been key to.
No, I'm not going to admit that.
Yeah, I think your priests. Are very important, especially trying to get the infantry off the objective.
That you're exactly right. I'm just not going to admit it because I don't want you to think that air is worthwhile because air is a gambler's game.
But that's right, because in our game when I played Chris Jackson, our first game, all 6 turns his air did not show up a single turn.
Yeah, so you take air in the hopes of a good solid early strike, an early kill like against those priests, which can have ramifications throughout the game. That's important. So you take it as a gamble. But you can't count on it.
Yeah, but it forces the attacker, your enemy, to do something about it.
Yeah. So then in our third game, both my game and Ed, we got matched up against each other.
Yes. So I was like number 4 in the ratings after my second game. Yeah. And you were like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I was actually below you going into the last round. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and surprise there. Yeah. And but that did not last long.
No. So we Ed. We did the simultaneous pick, and of course he knows I was going to pick attack, so I might as well just put my counter on the table.
I picked maneuver. Probably should have picked defend, but I picked maneuver, and then we ended up with the counterattack battle.
Yeah, which coincidentally was the exact same mission that we did as a play test a week prior.
And I lost terribly then.
And there's an article on No Dice, No Glory that'll be posted here. I did a write-up of AR that. I don't think it's up there yet. It's in the queue, so it should be up here. By the time this podcast is posted, it may be posted. So really, that's not, I don't really go into horrible detail now, but basically with us playing counterattack, I think is what we rolled up. I don't bother with the objective in the outside zone.
Nope, you just mass everything and just roll over me.
Yeah, and Ed knew I wasn't going to bother with it, so he didn't bother trying to flex out there.
Yep.
And the reason I don't want to do that is, especially against Ed's force, is so much of his anti-tank power was going to be in his reserves.
That's right.
And so I want to go as far away as I could as from the area where your reserves are going to come from.
And what's special about the 21st forces there, you have those French vehicles, and those French vehicles travel at a speed of 8.
Yeah, massive.
You can run as fast as these things. So with my reserves coming on the far side, it was safe. You knew that would never be a threat by hugging the far side of the board.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Tom did.
And how did I advance against you?
You advanced using terrain very wisely.
And what else? Same as our last game. Before that one.
Yeah, smoke.
That's right.
Smoke.
There shall be no ambush for you.
And that's right. And by the time the smoke lifted, there was only one little spot I could put my S-307s. And so they were right in the woods. And when I popped them out, I thought, hey, I got this guy. He's laid out on the hill. I got 8 shots on him, 5s or 6s. Boom. Shot. Killed 1 tank.
Yeah.
The next turn, all my guys were dead.
Yeah, you had about
there it was.
30 shots coming at that platoon the next turn. So.
Just like he did against his M10s in the previous game against Chris Jackson, he did the same thing to me.
Yeah,
and that was my only anti-tank stuff that I had, really, other than my Panzerfaust.
From there, it was a sad game.
It was sad.
But one thing I got to say, Ed, you
held on longer than you thought I would.
Well,
or at least longer than I thought.
I knew I couldn't win till turn 6, so
I thought I was going to be dead by turn 3.
I didn't think I could break it that quick.
Yeah.
But what I got to say about you, Ed, is that you maintained a good sense of humor. He'd already been down this road.
I was crying inside.
Yeah, he already had this horrible experience a week prior to this,
right?
And he was getting the exact same thing in the exact same way.
Yeah.
And
I was saying, can I do any better on this than I did last time? And I knew I couldn't.
Well, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to compliment you on your way of maintaining a good cherry disposition.
Oh, well, thank you.
And because if it was a reverse situation, I'd be a grumbler, mumbler, whiner. You know, I would. Yeah. I honestly would.
Some people get wound up on the win. For me, it's the playing.
Right.
And for me, playing the 21st, I haven't had an opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
And I really want to see, can they really do well, or can they hold out? For me, they held out a couple of turns longer than I expected them to do. So for me, that was a good thing.
Yeah. So now you've played the 21st Panzer a lot. Is it still a force that you can take reliably to tournaments?
Well, I'm going to do it anyway.
You're going to do it anyway.
But I am going to take your advice with the next tournament. Sensicon is the next one coming up. I'll talk about this in a minute in the upcoming events. But Sensicon, it's a 100-pointer.
Okay,
so I'll have 12 extra points.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to keep the same exact force I took to Indy Storm. Right. But I am going to add luck with the Panzer IV.
I think that'll be a help.
And I'm going to add the 2 points for the old minefields. So that way I'll be able to channel you a little bit, or the attackers.
So another thing you might want to do, I still think you need more tank power.
I know. I've got 2 forces here I'm looking at.
I don't think both your infantry platoons need half tracks. I think there's a lot of points in half tracks.
Hey, I bought those things and I painted those damn things up. I am playing them.
They're good looking models too, I understand. But I'm just saying, from a competitive standpoint, I don't think you need both platoons mounted.
Well, it's not the competitive thing I want to do. I want to play them.
It's
only for a couple more points, but it gives me a lot of machine guns.
Admirable.
And I was very happy with a lot of machine guns that I've had.
But what if you took a looted Firefly, and then you had...
Well, that's only 5 points. So that's right.
And you had 2 more AT-14 shots. Mm-hmm. So now you got Von Luck floating around with a couple of AT-11 shots, a looted Firefly with a couple of AT-14 shots, maybe a little platoon of Panzer IVs in there. Von Luck's re-rolls on reserves. I'm saying I think it could change the whole dynamics for the 21st Panzer.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it again. But right now that's what I've got. But where would I take out those 5 points?
Your half tracks.
Well, I could.
You don't need all of them.
I might take out my half tracks from my headquarters.
How about your
anti-aircraft
half tracks?
I know you don't like anti-air,
which has a snowball's chance of hell of doing anything useful.
I like my anti-air.
I know you do, yeah. and it cracks me up every time you take them.
Yeah, they get waxed pretty good. All right.
I consider air attacks like artillery. It just happens.
Yeah.
You just you spread out and move on.
Then I find out I don't shoot anybody down in the process, but they look good trying.
Well, kudos to you, Ed, for. I'm a little chilled. I have a whole 21st Panzer Force ready to get started working on, and I'm like.
Oh, but you have the other ones. You have the Stug, the 21st Stug.
Yeah, it would be more of a tank-based force than a Panzer Grenadier Force, but. Mm-hmm. Still,
I'd like to see you finish that up so you see how it plays.
I will. I'm just still too focused on allies right now. Mm-hmm. Still trying to finish up the rest of my U.S. slots, and so I'll get to them in the spring or so. So, anyways, it was a good event, Indy Storm.
Oh,
please, it's a fantastic convention site, easy to get into, great time, and of course, run by Able Company. Anything those guys put their name on is a first class event
every time.
So I'm really sorry we could not stay for the Team Yankee event. Sorry, Chris and Joe.
Shakira was calling my name.
Yeah, Shakira and J Lo,
and so was J Lo.
Yeah.
I heard them. They called for me particularly.
They did.
Yeah,
okay,
they did.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, speaking of halftime, let's go ahead and move to a little halftime break here and hear from Hard Knocks Games.
BattleVault is lame. Hard Knocks Games is awesome. You can get board games, trading card games, role-playing games, hobby supplies and tools, Gundam, Warhammer, and more. Find us on Facebook at hardknocksgames.com or visit us on the Dixie Highway.
Well, welcome back from the break, and let's now move on to hear from Vincent Arroyo.
So tonight we're very fortunate to be joined by Vincent Arroyo from El Paso, Texas. You figured by now you're probably already bored of listening to Ed and I, so we thought we'd get some fresh voices in here and fresh perspectives. But the most important thing about Vince is that he is the recent winner of the Las Vegas Open, which was the West Coast Nationals for Flames of War. And one thing that amazes me about his result there is that he went 8-1 with the Fallschirmjäger list in all five rounds against some of the top players in the nation. So with that nice intro, Vincent, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Oh, thank you, and I'm so glad you took the time to spend with us. So, tell me, what drove you to want to run Fallschirmjägers, an all-infantry force, and what most people perceive as a heavy tank meta kind of environment? What made you run a force, and also tell me about your thoughts about putting together this force. You know, where you're going with it and what drove you to put together force, and explain it, because I haven't explained it to the people yet on how you structure this force.
Alrighty. The structuring of the force was pretty simple. I started with the defensive breast card because it let me take a third platoon for my Fallschirmjägers. It replaces one of your Fallschirmjäger platoons with a beach defense platoon, which seemed like a pretty points effective way to protect an objective. You can include HMD teams and Panzerschrecks for half the price of the Fallschirmjäger HMG and Panzerschreck teams. So that gave me a solid objective defense.
Kind of like a secondary force for you there.
Well, with an all-infantry force, I did have 4 Sturmhubitze, the STUH, the 10.5 centimeter version, but that's not too much armor. So my main offensive maneuvering was going to come from the Fallschirmjäger. That's actually the second half of the defensive breast card, is it gives spearhead to Fallschirmjäger platoons, which was pretty clutch, and I think a great buy at 2 points.
Yeah, I my last tournament I played against Fallschirmjägers that actually used that ability and did a little spearhead and moved up forward, and it was a contact. So yeah, definitely a nice feature to have. I'm going to have to look at that when I run my own.
Yeah, no, that I only got to use it in one game, but it definitely came in pretty key in that game. It let me outflank my opponent and put him in a pretty bad spot.
Cool. So you only had one tank platoon. So what was your plan then to deal with enemy tank forces? And for the record, people, if you don't know, the Stu-42s only have a rate of fire 1. So not the most pretty solid tank defensively, but not the most solid in putting out an anti-tank fire. So what was your plan to face a lot of tanks?
Well, it depended on the mission. I ran into tanks. Going into the tournament, I told myself, okay, if I play a list that has more than 8 tanks. Defining a tank is something like a T-34 or a Panzer IV or something that's very capable on the offense. Not like the tank destroyers, because with the lack of HE, tank destroyers aren't as much of a threat. They're still good, but against dug-in veteran infantry, they tend to generate a lot more misses.
Cool.
Anyway, so against a large tank force, my plan was to defend and use interlocking Fallschirmjäger platoons to generate perhaps an additional Panzerfaust shot, or just sit there with the fearless morale and hold on until the tanks broke off, since most tanks don't have the same morale capabilities.
Yeah, not as the fearless Fallschirmjägers. Yeah, it's hard to come up with fearless tanks. And so, how did the you chose pack front, and so how did that play into the overall? I mean, was that going to be part of that defense? I mean, use the infantry up front to break them, and then kind of keep them in place while the 88s picked them off.
Oh, definitely. Pack front let me split up the 88s, which gave me a lot more lines of fire that I could generate, and lets me wear down tank platoons until they run into the defensive infantry positions.
Right, and I did hear that one of the things that you did, I think from the interview was you did for Battle Rankings, the quick video one that you were using attack when facing tank forces.
Uh, I only attacked against the tank destroyer list,
Hmm.
and anything mechanized or infantry I attacked against. I
Okay.
only ran into the one pure tank force that was James Best Jr.'s Churchill's
Yeah.
Russian list, I believe.
All right. Well, I'm sure we're going to come back to that one. Was that the final game?
That was my third game, but it
Oh, okay.
was my toughest game, most
Okay.
definitely.
Well, we definitely want to dig into that in a minute. Okay. Well, good. You've cleared some things up for me. I understood that you had that you had faced a lot of tanks, and that in some cases they were trying to use defend against you, and then but you used attack against them, and they got missions where they had deep reserves and all that kind of stuff.
That
And
that would have been my fourth round. It was a American tank destroyer company with Shermans in support.
mhm.
Jacob Myers was running it. Then he had American infantry using the tough hombres card.
All right.
So a lot of stuff on the board, but the second I saw tank destroyers, I figured I would attack. A lot of tank players will choose defend to try and force a meeting engagement and bring the infantry out of their positions.
Mhm.
But by turning around, I was able to force them into deep reserves,
So he went defend,
and I chose
trying
attack.
yeah, trying to get a fair fight, a meeting engagement, and then he got stuck with defensive reserves, deep
Uh,
reserves.
Mission
And
we played was no retreat, I think,
okay,
and so he ended up with the deep reserves and short board edge, which really allowed me to concentrate my artillery on his infantry.
one thing I was thinking when looking at your list was that if you were attacking a lot against tank forces, that it looked to me like the boards at Las Vegas Open were relatively open boards. It just seemed to be that from the photos that I saw on Facebook and so on. And I was thinking, this might not be a bad strategy to be very offensive with these things, just to get those 88s in the perfect position, after the defender has set up, and then have that ability to range in and knock out tank platoons. Because sure, they're little independent two-shot nests that are spread out all over the place, but they can concentrate their fire, and they've got that 40-inch range, so they can really do a number for you.
The boards in Las Vegas Open were actually surprisingly varied. You had some
Good.
really dense terrain tables. A couple of them had basically small cities, at least on half the table, which really restricted lines of fire for the 88s. But
Okay.
there was enough to where they provided a great advantage.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good to hear because I only saw a few picks and I was thinking, man, this seems kind of open to me. but again, you had 48 players, so 24 tables, and I saw less than half a dozen, so I got a very very small sampling there.
It was a pretty even mix. I think there were about 8 dense tables, 8 balanced tables, and 8 tables that were intentionally sparser.
Oh, good deal. Well, congratulations to the folks who actually ran LVO for the Flames of War event.
For the Flames of War event, I believe the head tournament organizer was Igor Tordenson.
Oh yeah,
Um,
from California.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, I've met him before. He's a great fellow.
Oh, he's a great guy. He did a fantastic job. It was probably one of the best run tournaments I've played in.
Oh, good deal. So they brought all the terrain from California with them, or they bring in local groups, or did people volunteer to bring tables, or how did they get to that mix that worked out so well?
I think they had a mix of California and local tables at the event. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
All right, sounds good. Well, cool. Well, let me ask you this. I definitely want to hear about the Jim Best game. If you think that was the clincher, tough one for you, and I know Jim Best Jr. There's a senior. His dad plays too, and I've had the pleasure of playing both of them a few times. But what game did you think was the I don't want to say the easiest one, but the one that your force was best suited for? The mission was just right. You had all those things hitting on all cylinders. Just that just made it as just a smooth, straight. You could just envision victory from turn one.
Um, it's hard to pick one of the games. I designed an infantry list that attacks, and a lot of the other infantry players were going defend, which is exactly what I wanted. So every time I heard somebody say defend, I kind of felt the weight come up off my shoulders.
Hmm. Cool. Now, when you did attack, did you use smoke?
I attacked 4 out of 5 games, and I don't think I fired one smoke mission my first game.
See, you and I would differ on that. I'm all about the smoke. I'm all about the rush up behind the smoke screen, get as close as possible, and then when the smoke screen, you know, dissipates, then just lurch on everything. That's I run my Soviets that way in Team Yankee. That's why I do almost all my stuff in Flames of War. But yeah, I'm a big smoke fan. And I noticed, with the Noble Warfares, you had dual Noble Warfare batteries. I don't know if we covered that part yet. So you had two giant templates that are veteran. They range in fairly easily, and they did have smoke capability. And the Stu-42s are also a good bombardment unit. That's one of the nice things that you give up by giving up that additional AT shot and direct fires, that you have that bombardment capability. So you had three decent template weapons. No mortars though, right? No
No
mortars.
mortars.
Yeah, and that surprises me. It seems like mortars are always a good cheap little thing to throw on there. But I guess with the Fallschirmjägers, the 32-inch range sometimes can be a bit of a bummer for the mediums.
I would have taken them, but I was at the point where I had already allocated a lot of points to artillery, and I was pretty light on anti-tank weaponry, so I was trying to spread it out and make my units tougher against
Yeah.
armor, because I know there's a lot of armor out there.
Yeah, and you definitely, like you said, you had more coverage square inches with those two big templates and the third one from the stews. That's sufficient. And another thing I've noticed too when I play my Fallschirmjägers is that those 3-man mortar units, they're not gun teams, they're infantry teams. And when they for the medium mortars, and when they lose that one in that three team unit, they're already taking morale checks. So that's a bit of a disincentive to take the three team Fallschirmjäger mortars. So cool. All right. So how about the toughest game? Let's hear about the Jim Best game.
Uh, Definitely the toughest game. The table we played on was about a half and half split between some dense terrain and some hedgerows on the other flank. It was a small city, basically. I chose to defend because I saw 15 Churchills and knew with 3 flamethrower tanks, the heavy Soviet flamethrower tanks. I don't remember.
Oh, the KVs maybe the KVs
Yes.
with the flamethrower and the 45 mm gun.
The KVOTs, yes,
Yeah.
those were.
Okay. All right.
So there was those. He had some self-propelled guns in the backfield. Only one platoon of infantry and no artillery. So.
Well, was it the Su-76 self-propelled guns or Su
85s,
122s?
85s maybe.
Oh, okay. Those are AT. They do not bombard. That's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So they're purely AT Overwatch long range guns. Okay. But so no bombardment capability in that list, huh?
Not a bit.
Oh, okay. I'd have had to have at least one unit. Just maybe those Su-76s or Su-122s or something. But so cool. So how did the game play out?
Well, I went ahead and picked defend. We ended up with rear guard, I believe, and threw down the minefields. His Soviet pioneers cleared those minefields just about as quick as they can get cleared. My artillery was basically useless for most of the game. It was the first units that came off the board, with the exception of the Sturmhaubitze.
Yeah, well, they served a purpose.
They had the anti-tank capability that I was lacking. The game really came down to just the Fallschirmjägers holding on, and James having probably the worst dice I've ever seen anybody have.
I did hear that there was some just amazing dice coincidences towards the end there.
I think he failed 9 2+ cross checks with Churchills when he was trying to assault my Fallschirmjäger on the objective.
Oh man, that's got to be frustrating. But at least you know his dice are even or honest.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't complain about him. He
yeah.
had some good luck on the other end of the battlefield where it didn't matter, but it came down to he'd come across with 2, 3 Churchills. One would fail the check, the other one would eat a Panzerfaust or kill a team, then eat a Panzerfaust,
Hmm.
and then fall back. And his formation finally broke when a bailed out tank fled.
Cool. Did he push both objectives simultaneously, or did he just mass almost entirely on one?
Oh no, he threw everything at one objective. I got
Okay.
lucky turn one and killed probably 5 Churchills with the 88s at long
Mhm.
range.
Nice, nice.
And
And did
then
you lose any of those?
the 88s, I lost 2 of them.
Okay. Yeah. So educate me on. I've not used them yet. I've been contemplating since I saw the card, but you deploy these as a unit at the same time. They're independent teams once they're on the table, and there's if you put them in ambush, only one team would go in ambush. The rest would be deployed.
I believe that's the way it would work. I just deployed them as independent teams because that was the best implementation for them.
Sure. Yeah, and
Uh,
also sometimes one gun in ambush isn't really much of an
yeah.
ambush.
The Sturmabits were always my ambush unit unless I ran into a position where they needed to be in reserves. Then I was going to go with the beach defense platoon because it had the best concentration of anti-tank firepower and the
Yeah,
heavy machine gun.
yeah, that had the Panzerfaust and the additional two Panzerschrecks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, and the machine guns to help in case infantry tried to come get them. so, so very very cool. Did the Stews take out any Churchills?
I think they got 1 or 2 Su-85s, but they didn't get any of the Churchills. The Churchills all fell to 88s or Panzerfausts.
Okay, yeah. Well, the AT of 8 and what is the front armor of 8 versus the AT of is it 10 on the Stew?
10, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's pretty low odds there. But if he rolls a 1, that 2+ firepower will do you right. So not
The
too
other good
bad.
thing about it is I believe they've got heat,
Yep.
which really helps negate their lower rate of fire. It's more of a unit. I like to play games with the German movement orders, so the heat lets me stick at range and stick and move with them
Nice.
if I
I,
need to.
I do have 4 stews that I used the plastic ones from the old open fire set. I had a couple of those sets, and I was like, I got plenty of Stugs. I don't need to build any more Stugs, and plus they're going to be in plastic. So I said, I'll just take some of these leftover Stew 42 barrels and put them on the plastic hulls, and so that's why I got my set. But haven't used them yet.
I
What could
love them. The points efficiency plus the additional bombardment is just you can't beat it.
I'm gonna have to try it. You're making me a believer. So let me ask you: have you been playing this list for a while? Was this thing something you just put together recently, or have you just always been the FJ guy?
I bounce around lists a lot. I put this one together because I was looking at how things were going prior to LVO and how I was faring against different lists like Soviets, British, American tank destroyers with German tanks.
Hmm.
And I figured not very many people would expect an infantry force to attack with the current lists that are floating around out there.
No, I
So
think good call. I think you nailed it.
combining that with the ability to throw 2 salvo templates a turn was just that was what put the list together for me. So I played it a couple local events that we had. I probably had 9 games under my belt with the list before I went to Vegas.
Yeah, good, respectable. And so, what about going forward with this list? Is this, I mean, is this now now people are going to figure out how to take this list down, and you're going to shift to something else, or are you going to continue to play this?
I'm not sure if it's that people don't know how to take it down. It's more that I proved the concept. Now I kind of want to try something new. I tend to
Yeah.
once something's proven to me,
Hmm.
it loses some of the appeal to play it.
Yeah, I can understand that. That makes sense. So, will you be venturing out to any other nationals or any other major events? I mean, obviously you're in El Paso, which is 1,000 miles from anywhere. So I've been there. I've been there a few times.
I think
It's
anywhere might be 1,200 miles from El Paso.
yeah, that could
Nowhere's
be
only 800 though.
nice. Yeah.
Um, I'm looking at Historicon. That seems like a lot of fun. If I can work out travel, that's probably the next event I'd like to go to. I'm planning on going to Masters if I get the invite.
You do. You have the golden ticket, buddy. You're set. You don't have to worry about rankings or standings or anything else. The national winners get automatic invites. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. I'll definitely be at that one. Those are actually my favorite events, the smaller ones where everybody is a player where you're going to remember the game.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to attend Masters twice, and always have been great experiences. You're going against people who know the rules, that have great forces, that put a lot of thought into their gaming, and then it's massive beer drinking afterwards. So it's a good show. I highly recommend it if it works out for you as far as time and distance. But I'm pretty confident you automatically get an invite. So good deal on that.
That's the one event I am 100% going to this year, but if I get a second one, it's going to be Historicon. I'm pretty confident that's going to work out. I just have to work out the logistics.
Yeah, I may be joining you there. I'm hoping to go to Historicon this year. It's been about 4 or 5 years since I've been out there, so I'll be glad to meet you face to face. But one thing before we wrap up, we do have a bit of a connection. So Vince was pretty much introduced to Flames of War by John Holland, a mutual friend of ours, and John played Flames of War before he met me, but he didn't play in tournaments and so on. So that's when he started playing tournaments. So he gives me credit for getting him in tournament play. So I'm going to say that I'm the Count Dooku to John's Qui-Gon Jinn to your Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so I'm particularly enjoying your results because I'm going to take a sliver of credit, however undeserved, for it. But certainly great to see people come in and let me ask you, how long have you been playing Flames of War?
Probably about 4 years.
Okay,
that sounds about right. John was stationed down here, and he started up the community. And one of the first 2 guys that started playing with him was a really good friend of mine. He came over to my house with a box of tanks, and he said, "You got to try this game." At the time, I was knee deep in 4 or 5 different tabletops, and I kept saying no. And then we finally threw a refrigerator box on some sawhorses in the garage, and I took 3 Stugs, and he took 4 Shermans, and the next day I dropped $200 on an army.
Sweet. Well done, and very good at getting up to the Masters level in just 4 years. That's quite a feat. So, any other thing you want to say out there to the No Dice No Glory BattleVault audience of 6 people, or whoever's listening tonight? Actually, I will make. We did have some. Ed and I were at a tournament. My buddy Ed did last week in Indianapolis, and no, we're pretty tight with those guys, but virtually all of them had already listened to the podcast and given us some pretty good feedback. So that was heartwarming. So hopefully we'll continue to grow. But please, what would you like to say to the Flames of War fan base out there?
Thank you. This is an amazing game. I've played lots of war games at different levels of competition, and by far the Flames of War players are the best gamesmen. They're the most polite. They're the most welcoming. It's an amazing community, and I'm really happy to be part of it.
Yeah, well said, and I totally concur. Well, Vince, thanks for taking the time to speak to us tonight, and I do hope we get to meet at Historicon. I think I can swing that. I'm not counting on any masters for myself, but if I get lucky enough to join you there, that'll be fine too. But I look forward to following your exploits and your movement through the rankings, and hope that we get to cross paths here in the near future.
That sounds great. I'd love to do that.
Take!
All right, so now we're coming up to one of our most beloved portions of the BattleVault podcast, rules and forgot. Except for this time.
Yeah.
It's actually a bit more of the rules Tom got wrong.
Yeah.
So, but
you didn't forget. You just got it wrong. You just interpreted it differently.
It's way.
And I would have interpreted it the same way.
Yeah, a lot of people would. It is verbatim by the rules, but when you look at it on the tabletop, it just looks weird. It feels wrong. It feels like it should not go one way, but in fact it actually does.
So what exactly was this that happened?
All right, well, so this actually came up in my second game with Chris Jackson, and it revolved around my final assaults against the objective to win the game in the last turn that I could possibly win it. Mm-hmm. So I attacked that objective from three sides, kind of closing in. Mm-hmm. One assault was stopped by defensive fire. Mm-hmm. The other two went in. Fine. I still thought I had him surrounded from three sides. It looked like it was a pretty well-drawn cinch sack to cut him off. So the rule is, when you're forced to break off, you must break off 6 inches away from the closest assaulting team. Mm-hmm. Right? Everything has to be 6 inches away from assaulting team. No more than. It stops when it gets to 6 inches. But
that's all it says.
That's all. It doesn't say you can't come within 6 inches of another enemy team.
Right.
So basically, I was just pushing him from side to side instead of driving him back, and that's what kind of happened. So he could break off, but he only had to be 2 inches away from the other units I had, because the other units, even though they had assaulted earlier in the turn, they were no longer an assaulting unit at that point in the assault phase. So he didn't have to be 6 inches away from those, just the ones we're currently resolving the assault for. Mm-hmm. So that allowed him to just wiggle that little half-inch, quarter-inch to stay a toehold on the objective and still win the game. Mm-hmm. So that was a bit of a surprise to me, because when you looked at it, it was like he was all hemmed in. He was not going anywhere.
So in the end, did you win the assaults?
I won 2 of the 3 assaults.
Okay.
But because
so the one stopped. One didn't make it in.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the other, you won one in the...
No, I won the first one. Second one got stopped. Third one also went in. And so it's difficult to explain on the audio here, radio, if you will. But basically, my platoons were like playing ping pong with his defending platoons.
But he still survived, and that was just enough to get, and still be close enough to the objective.
Still have a team within range to contest the objective. Mm-hmm. And didn't have enough casualties where I'd have to start checking morale. If it was,
and then it was turn 9 afterwards.
Yeah, right. Then beginning of turn 9.
So since we're talking about rules here, when you get to that turn 9, and this was rear guard.
Yeah.
Okay, rear guard. On turn 9, do the Germans, or the defender in this case, have to pass a morale check before the turn's over?
Yes.
Okay, so after that's done, then the game's over, or is it when turn 9 starts? It's over.
Yeah, me as the attacker in turn 9 was my last chance to take the objective. Mm-hmm. And then...
So the next turn, that's it.
No. Not that turn 9. You play the attackers, the first portion of turn 9, that's it. The defender doesn't have a turn. Okay. All the defender does has to check morale to see if he's still around.
Okay, so he passed his morale.
Well, he didn't have to check. That was his armored rifle platoon, and he had pulled armored rifle company. He already pulled enough stuff off that was not in bad spirits that there was no way I could break his armored rifle company.
Right.
That was not going to happen. So the company check was out of the question. Mm-hmm. It was just a question of, could he keep one team within 4 inches of that objective?
Right.
It didn't.
But that platoon that was assaulted, did not have to check.
No, because it still had way more than 2 teams, right? Infantry.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so he had more than one. Okay, I was thinking you had one.
It had been a trade. It had some losses. I didn't even know it was at 50%, but it doesn't matter so long as it has 2 teams on the board. Or correction, 3 teams on the board. Mm-hmm. 3 teams on the board. He doesn't have to check morale, and he might have had 3 or 4 or 5. I can't remember, but he was not in a position where it also forced him to check morale.
So you say this was the Chris Jackson game, right?
Yeah, right. Okay. And he also there technically were 2 platoons in the AO. He had a what was left of a machine gun platoon.
Okay. And, he had heavy machine guns.
Yeah, the machine gun platoon might have had to check. I think it might have been down to about 2 teams, but he had 2 teams contesting the objective. I think one might have been from the machine gun platoon. That one might have owed me a morale check if I looked real closely. I may have missed that.
But the other one made it.
The other one didn't matter. One of them was definitely going to be in there, the infantry one, so it was a moot point whether the machine guns left or not. And I'd already scored well more than enough victory points to bother with checking.
So it was
else.
a 6-3 win?
Yeah, it was a 6-3 win for Chris.
For Chris.
Yeah, 3-6 loss for me. So good game. But I learned a lot. And and Ed, in the past, you've fallen prey to this, where you basically just think, I can't get within...
I'm surrounded. I
I'm
can't
cut
go
off.
anywhere.
But no, you might have a little wiggle room, so you really have to check. You can get within 2 inches.
Mm-hmm.
This would be for infantry. Now for tanks, tanks that have enemy tanks behind them can run right through them.
Yes.
Because there's no 2-inch standoff from tanks to tank, right? Except for you can't drive over an enemy tank.
Okay.
Right? You can't drive.
So what about does there have to be a gap between there large enough to get through, or?
Yeah, I think so. Because you can't drive over him. You have to have a gap. You have to be able to have enough maneuver room to get between
as long as there's a gap.
Yeah, so I suppose if you threw some tanks in there and turned them sideways or something, some weird thing. But anyways, I'm too cheesy even to try to do anything like that.
Okay. But there would have had to have been a gap.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so that's a big thing. So don't throw in the towel. When you think you're surrounded.
Go through each.
If you can get away 6 inches from the assaulting teams, that's all you have to worry about. And then if you're infantry or gun teams, you can't come within 2 inches of another enemy team. Period. And if you're enemy tanks, you can't come within 2 inches of another enemy infantry team, but you can come within 2 inches of an enemy tank team. So there you go. So that was important. So we both, I got something really powerful out of that, and thanks for Chris Jackson for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. The first upcoming event I want to mention is the one at Cold Wars in Lancaster, Pennsylvania on the 13th of February. It's going to be a 100-point mid-war Flames of War game. And also the next day on the 14th, they're going to be playing a 90-point Team Yankee game?
Yep, Team Yankee.
Team Yankee. Team Yankee game. So there you go. That's Cold Wars in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Both those events are being run by Brian Sullivan.
Okay.
Yeah, good guy from back
We've
east.
met him before.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the next one I'm looking at is Cincicon. That's the one that you and I are going to go to in Cincinnati on the 6th and 7th of March. They've got a lot of stuff going on there. On Friday, they've got a Team Yankee escalation tournament, a 70, 90, 120 tournament. They will also have a Mid-War Flames Award 90-point game there too. And these are, of course, 3 rounds each. On Saturday, there'll be a 100-point late war. So what I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to take my modified 21st, but I am going to take luck on this one.
Awesome.
Okay, still haven't decided if I'm going to take a small tank platoon or not.
You better.
I know you told me that. I'm trying not to. All right, just because you said that.
You just want to try to prove me wrong.
That's exactly right. And then, but they also have a 100-point Great War. I want to do this sometime. Okay, I've got that French stuff, and I need to finish paying them up.
You got to get off your butt and finish your French.
I know, yeah. I'm really close to it.
You could borrow my Brits or Germans.
Okay.
You could if you wanted to.
But
I'm not playing in that.
No, I'm going to play the 100-point.
It's great to see Great War. You don't see tournaments for that very often.
Mm-hmm.
I know our buddy Mitch Reed has run some Great War tournaments back at Huzzah Hobbies in Northern Virginia. I think maybe 1 or 2 other ones, but I'd like to see more of those.
If I had known we were going to do this at Cincicon, I would have got them ready because I've got all the French tanks. I got a tank for us. If I can make a tank for us, I can make it. But I'm not quite finished with my infantry yet, so I'm close, but not close.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Mm-hmm. So you're going to play in the on Friday?
I'm going to play Friday's Mid-War. I still need to sign up for it, but I will definitely play the 100-point late war.
And I'm playing Team Yankee on Friday.
Yeah, you're going to do that one. Yeah.
All right, and then Saturday we're both playing Late War.
Saturday, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
You would play Great War if you're French already, but they're not. So, all right, cool. So then what's after that?
Wolfcraig.
Oh,
that's our baby here.
Our favorite event of the whole year.
Yes.
Yeah. So 100-point.
100-point D-Day focused, red on blue. So it's definitely I'm not fighting any Germans. I am planning on taking my 21st.
All right. God bless you.
And so there you go. This will be the final shot. So we'll find out if I need to take your Panzer IVs or not.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, we'll see.
Do some more playtest games for you.
Yeah,
we'll prove to you the value of the Panzer IV.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Wolfcraig, for those that don't know, it's a 5-round thing.
So two-day event.
Yeah, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So fantastic. And if you just want to play historical games all day long against historical opponents, hardly any other tournaments do this.
Yeah.
And so and they try to balance the point. They try to balance the awards so that they're the Allied and Axis, have pairings at the top. So they try to get it so that it's not all dominated, where it's all the Germans are at the top, and then and so on. So basically, you could be relatively low in the standings, but if you're the best American or best Brits, there's usually awards for best American best Brits, even if you happen to be 9th or 10th or something.
Or Axis and Allied.
Usually have a best Axis and Allied, General, Axis and Allies, 2IC, and in a third place too. So they do a pretty good job spreading out the prizes on that. Yeah. And we're really looking forward to that.
Prize support's been pretty good.
And then after that?
After that, on the... Oh, I skipped one. I got this wrong. On the 22nd of February.
Oh, that's way before that.
Oh, yeah. This is the week after the one at Cold Wars. In the Legion's is going to be playing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at a 93-point Team Yankee.
All right.
And that's on the 22nd of February. Sorry, I got that out of order.
Rich Bear and his buddies. It's a good group. I've not been to Pennsylvania yet, but we see them a lot in Ohio events and some other
Cincinnati,
ones. Yeah, in Cincinnati. And they've come down to Wolf Creek, a couple of them. So that's all been good. Good group there to support.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that rolls us into the end of the March
At the end of March?
With Adepticon.
We've got Adepticon there. This is with the Midwest Nationals. And so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on there, but they are going to have a 5-round Flames of War mid-war 90-pointer. And so they're also going to have a 120-point Team Yankee tournament. So a lot of stuff there. And it's located in...
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah, Schaumburg, kind of the outskirts of Chicago, kind of to the western edge of the town there.
So we should be able to see our Minnesota buddies.
Oh yeah,
Minnesota,
Battle Badgers,
Michigan.
A lot of players up in Illinois that we only see there.
Maybe a couple of our Missouri guys too.
Of course, Able Company will be there in full force, and so will the Golf Company from Ohio, and I know our buddy Waylon Burt's coming up from Tennessee. So that's typically.
Oh, is he going? Yeah, that's
he
great.
said he's going to be there.
He's a great painter.
They'll probably about 40 some players or plus for both Team Yankee and Adepticon. That's what they had last year. So it's a strong event, definitely worth, and also a ton of other great things to see at Adepticon. You're going to love it. Yeah. They have just all sorts of vendors and all sorts of games. There's games being played, tournaments for systems that I haven't seen played in decades, like War Master.
Yeah.
So, different things like that. So
well, I look forward to it. I know Tom does, and Tom's finally talked me into doing it. So it sounds like a thing to happen.
All right,
it's going to happen this year. We're going to do it.
Yeah,
as long as the boss lets me out of work.
Yeah, who's the boss?
Who's the boss?
I got to ask my boss.
Yeah, do it.
So that should be a fine. I think I already have my leave in for that. So in any case, again, folks, welcome for tuning in tonight. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your feedback. So please give it to us. You can go to podcast@BattleVault.com if you want to use the email route. Or you can go to the No Dice, No Glory forums, and there's a podcast feedback entry there. Okay. Or you can just go reply to the article when it gets posted on the homepage for No Dice, No Glory, and put your comments there. In any case, we'd love to hear from you, and it doesn't hurt our feelings to hear negative feedback.
Yeah,
we're used to it in our day jobs. You want negative feedback? Just give an anonymous survey to your students. But no, it's important though. We want to do better all the time. We want to serve you better and serve the Flames of War community and Team Yankee community and so on in the U.S. So we do like to hear from you, and most importantly, we like to hear how we can tighten our shot group.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, without further ado, take care, and we'll talk to you next time on the Battle Vault, a No Dice, No Glory podcast.
There you go.
Target!